Hey everybody, Edo here, and I am excited today because I have Phoebe Wild, who is launching the LudoCherry shirts and skirts Kickstarter today, right?
That's right. How are you
Awesome,
doing?
awesome. And I have to say, I know basically nothing about you, so I think we can dive in. But I saw you linked to me, actually, it was a while ago, the skirts and shirts and things that you were doing about and doing a Q&A, and I guess finally the Kickstarter's come around and we're talking. But I know nothing about making clothing. And so I guess the first question for me is what do you know about making clothing? Like, where were you like, we're going to make these cool, subtle, but neat gamer gear or whatever you're calling it?
So before this, I also knew nothing about how to make clothing. All I really had was a passion for board games and a passion for, I'm not going to say passion for fashion, a passion for style and clothing, and especially the vintage kind of style is very much my aesthetic. So really, I had this idea for creating stylish clothing that is subtle but geeky, so you can kind of wear it anywhere. And I was like, well, I want this to exist. I want this clothing. This is what the clothing I want to wear. And I really just kind of dove into figuring out clothing manufacturing, figuring out creating patterns and art and all that kind of thing. So it's been 2 years of very steep learning curves as myself and my partner Mark have been figuring out all of the logistics around this.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of Kickstarter, right? And so I actually am super curious because I know nothing about making clothing. But I think that point you're making about being subtle, this is, if you look at the Kickstarter, and I've seen it, but when this is up, I'll link it below and you can check it out. But, obviously all of the, patterns and things that you're doing are like super small and like you'd have to be more up close to see it. Otherwise, from afar away, the dice sort of look like polka dots or the different elements. And so it doesn't look like, your typical, like there's a little bit more of that board game geek clothing out there, but it's usually like, I'm a geek, I'm a gamer, in your face type of vibe. Um, but but obviously your stuff looks very different from that. And
Yeah, we sorry.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, we wanted it to. We know a lot of people who, they're geeks, they love board games, but they don't necessarily want to be, super loud and
Labeled, those
yeah,
things.
all that kind of stuff. And we also know, sometimes you want to be geeky, but you want to be stylish as well. You want to wear it out to a nice dinner, you want to wear it to work. And so, because we've got kind of a little bit dressier clothing, we've got button up shirts, we've got kind of the vintage circle skirt. The style kind of lends itself to what we've affectionately called stealth geek. So you can kind of get away with it anywhere, even and people won't necessarily notice unless they're looking for it, unless they're upfront and talking to you. And as you said, from afar, it just looks like kind of a classic, nice fabric design.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it really does. And so, hey, I'm wearing a Pencil First Game sweatshirt. But this process is like, here's a logo, put it on a site, get a sweatshirt, right? So
Yep.
help me understand what the process is for what you're doing, and like how deep the rabbit hole goes. Like, is it you just have a design and there's actually manufacturers that will do it? Do you have to come up with the full cut? Like, what was your process to putting this together?
So it's pretty complicated once you start digging down into it. So the most important thing you need for clothing manufacturing is what we call the pattern, which is like the design of the garment. So anyone who sews or knows a bit about clothing, the pattern is kind of what you put on the fabric, you cut out the shapes and you'll sew those together. So you first kind of create an initial pattern based on, whatever your starting size is, and you go, okay, I want it to be this style, I want it to be this long, and you have to know a lot about clothing in order to make those. And I'm
And so
not
this, just for people listening, when you say pattern, you don't mean the repeating images. You mean the actual die line or cut of the elements that are being cut out of fabric and sewn together, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's almost like kind of those dress up doll kind of things, except you'll sew them all together and make a physical kind of 3D garment. But because I don't know how to do pattern making, I've gone and I've hired professional pattern makers who kind of, I tell them, okay, I want a button up shirt. I want it to be about this long. I want the style to be like this. I want it to have a front pocket, all of these details that I want in the design. And they basically go and turn that into this flat pattern. They then have to what they call grade it, which is making it into different sizes. So they'll take that sample size, which for us is the XL, and then they'll grade it down. So we have the large, the medium, the small, and they'll grade it up to the 2X, 3X, 4XL.
Okay. And so how many, not counting the grades, how many patterns do you have?
So we have the two. So we've got the button-up shirt and the skirt. So those are the two kind of styles that we
Got it. And
have.
that's the focus of the Kickstarter, those two
Yep.
graded in different sizes.
Yep.
Trying to use
And
the
so
lingo here. The
yes,
patterns graded in
exactly.
sizes. Okay, go
And
ahead.
it's confusing because the textile, the fabric designs are also called patterns in different
Right.
contexts. So we've kind of got the fabric patterns and the clothing patterns. But yeah, without getting too technical, those are the two styles we'll have in the Kickstarter. And the reason we're just focusing on the two is that because of minimum production orders and everything like that, the more individual styles we add, the more types of garments we add, basically will exponentially increase our Kickstarter goal.
Sure. And you've never done this before. So no worries,
Exactly.
keep it. Okay, but hold on. So, because I have to deal with, I mean, I make board games, right? So it's a little
Yeah.
different. But so you have the pattern. How do you go about determining and selecting the material that's used in the actual shirt? Like, what is that
Yes.
process like?
So basically, first of all, you have to find a manufacturer. So we, emailed a bunch of different manufacturers we found online. You have to get in contact, get initial quotes, get samples from them, kind of all of that. In order to decide on a fabric, you'll kind of tell them roughly what you want the fabric to be made of. So we told our manufacturer we want 100% cotton, we want it about this thickness, this weight, and they come back with a few options and let us pick from those based on the pricing. We're pretty unique in that most clothing brands that you see won't be making their own fabric. So a pretty standard process is I'll approach a manufacturer and I'll say, okay, I have this clothing design and I want the shirt to be made out of 100% cotton and I want it to be a blue and white striped shirt. And they'll come back to us with, okay, we already have all of these different fabrics that are blue and white striped
Sure.
cotton. Which one do you want to use? And so that's kind of the typical process. We're doing custom printing because obviously our fabric designs don't exist yet. So we're custom printing all of these on fabric. So we've got a minimum of 1,000 meters that we have to print per fabric. It's very expensive to do custom printing. And honestly, you usually don't do it unless you're a very big brand or kind of a couture, expensive
Sure.
luxury brand. So we're kind of leaping into the deep end and saying, okay, we really want these clothes to exist. We know it's going to be a little bit pricier because of all these elements, because it's 100% cotton, because it's custom. But hopefully people love the designs and think it's worth it for that.
For sure, right? And that's what makes them unique. Okay, but I'm still wrapping my head around this. So you have this. Okay, so you're like, I want 1,000 meters of clothing. Is the company that prints the fabric the same company that makes the skirt and shirt, or are you now working with the printer of the fabric and then the dressmaker of the shirt and skirt?
It depends on how you do it, but how we're doing it is we've asked our manufacturer, we want these fabrics, here's the files, and they're basically outsourcing that printing and the fabric creation to another company, but they're coordinating all of that
Sure.
themselves. So thankfully, we don't have to deal with those logistics of getting it printed, getting it to a manufacturer. They're handling all of that.
And actually, that bit of it isn't so different from a lot of if you're doing manufacturing in China on board games. A lot of the companies that you'll interface with actually work with other companies to source their goods, and so a lot of people don't realize it. But like your company might say, like, here, we're going to do this product for you, but they'll get the dice from a dice maker, and they'll get the
Yep.
punch board from the punch board maker, and they're the meeples from the meeple maker, and they're all these specialized factories that feed into the mega factory that's talking with you.
Yep.
So they just handle that for you. How much? So ultimately, your Kickstarter's not. I mean, super. You have a goal of, I think it's 16,000 or so, and so it's not a huge number. It's certainly not a small number. I know nothing about clothing Kickstarters, but what is your, in terms of total backers, right? Like ultimately you'll figure it out, but like in terms of the amount of people you're looking for to sort of cover that minimum, about how many shirts/skirts do you need to sell?
Our golden number at the moment is 300 backers. So
Okay.
that's assuming an equal split of shirts and skirts, 150 of each. So that's kind of what we've been aiming for this whole time, is 300 people who want our stuff, love our stuff, and are prepared to kind of back us for it.
Sure. And like, not that a bad case would be like one skirt and 299 shirts, right? Like, because
Sure.
yeah. Okay. Things like that happen. That's how it rolls. So, so you've come up with these. Is it like your dream to become a clothing, like a fashion designer, or is it like, no, I just had this idea for a couple items and I want to do this Kickstarter and maybe I'll do one more if it's successful? Like, how much is this you pursuing a cool idea for a thing versus like, no, my whole life this is what I've wanted to do? How does it falling on that spectrum?
It's a weird question, because if you'd asked me 2.5 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I would never have thought I'd be starting a clothing line, right? Like, I've loved fashion, I love, dressing up, and I have, looking at it, admiring it. I'd never thought I'd be in the position of creating this. So it definitely started out as me saying, oh, I've got this cool idea. Let's do some sketches. I was binging all the previous seasons of Project Runway at the time. So I definitely had a creative kind of mindset going on. And it started out as, I wonder if other people want this. I wonder if this could be a thing. And now that I'm kind of 2 years into working on it, we've been doing all the marketing, all the logistics, creative side of it. I'm like, well, if people want this, if this is going to go well, I can see myself doing this for, more and more things. We've got a lot of requests for, will you have ties? Will you have, women's shirts or long sleeve shirts or socks and all this kind of stuff, that there's so much room for us to grow and expand. And if there's the demand for it, if people love it enough for us to keep doing it, I definitely want to keep doing it.
Cool. And so this is your first Kickstarter, right?
It is, yes.
Have you been associated or worked on any Kickstarter previously?
I have. So I used to work for Bezier Games as their social media manager. So I've done 6 Kickstarters through them, I think it was.
You're a pro.
I've never done this much before. I've usually just done the kind of marketing, the social posts side of it, which is obviously one aspect, but I definitely knew a little bit of what to expect coming into it, which is helpful.
For sure. Well, again, looking at your page and who you've sort of secured for quotes or trying on the garments, I mean, it reflects somebody who is familiar with the movers and shakers in the board game space, right? And that would explain it. And so, and where were you when you were doing the social media for those guys? Where were you based?
So I'm in Australia now. I was still in Australia. I did it remotely. So lots of long nights for them, especially when we launched a Kickstarter. I mean, we're launching our Kickstarter at 2 a.m. Australian time, because we know that, we need the US market. So work remotely, very used to those kind of weird hours to get the American market.
Sure, for sure. Sometimes I work on video games, and a lot of the limited release market is Australia, New Zealand, so it's sort of the opposite. You guys get all the early apps, but and so, well, so let's talk about shipping for a second. So, presume, where are you manufacturing, in China or somewhere else?
In China, yeah.
And then, so do you have logistics around how you're going to handle U.S. shipments, Australia and otherwise, or what's your plan there?
Yeah, so at the moment we're talking with a couple of fulfillment centers, but all of them are based in China. So because we have, our products are very light, they're not breakable, they can be just kind of put into a padded bag and shipped, unlike board games. We can get very cheap global shipping, or relatively cheap global shipping, just from sending out globally from China.
Right, like what was it? Send from China, that kind of that's one of
Yeah.
those types of groups. Yeah, it was funny. So I alluded to it, but I did these sweatshirts for Pencil First Games, and what I did is I made one. Anyone who like over the last 5 or 7 years has made a game, I was like, I'm gonna send everyone a sweatshirt because why not? And putting them in the boxes, I was like, I can just stuff these in the boxes and they're not gonna break. Like I don't need bubble wrap. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So hopefully, but I imagine you can still have a missing button or a bad sew or things like that. So it's not perfect, but certainly not having to deal with things breaking is nice.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I'm very glad we don't have to deal with all the boxes and the dents and the corner protectors, and
Oh
it's a
man,
whole other level to shipping that,
and you don't
thankfully,
need to
yeah,
deal with room in your box for sleeved cards and
yeah.
all those fun things. So I mean, all right, you have your Kickstarter. It's launching today. Probably already launched when I put this video out. You got a 22-day campaign, so it's a healthy length. It's that 3 week length. It's not going to like drive you nuts, but
Yep.
and it's a very novel and delightful pattern and look and feel. But heading into the Kickstarter, having had some experience with Kickstarters in general, I mean, like, are you excited? Are you nervous? Are you like what emotions are you feeling heading into this?
All the emotions. Definitely excited, definitely nervous. I mean, as I said, it's been kind of 2 years, a year and a half that I've been working on this from kind of concept to launching now. So it's definitely got a lot of love behind it, a lot of passion, and you don't want to get to that point and have it fail, right? So we're pretty sure we've got the community, we've kind of built the mailing list, we've got lots of people who are very passionate about what we're doing, but you never know until you click launch and see how people respond. So I guess we're just, got our fingers crossed and hoping that it all goes well.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, look, I think it's super cute and presumably the quality's there and all that. I don't really know how to gauge that in clothing, but it sounds like you've done your research. Um, and okay, and so in your research, as you've been looking at this, obviously board game Kickstarters, I'm aware of. What is the Kickstarter clothing scene like? Like, are there a lot of Kickstarters for new looking clothing on Kickstarter? Is that a weird thing? Like, what's if you say for a moment, hey, I think we've got really good awareness in the Kickstarter board game community, in the board game community. I know those websites, I know where to talk about it. Is there an opportunity for like new designs for clothing on Kickstarter, or is that like super weird?
It's so there is an apparel section on Kickstarter, like an apparel category. It doesn't seem to be super big, and the kinds of apparel you'll get are like I'm making this one like jacket, and I'm making this one jacket in three different colors, and it's got these features, and back it if you like it. So they'll tend to be very limited, like they'll have a single product in a few different colors. I mean, I know I've seen a few for like jeans and like dresses, but it's like I have this one dress in a few different colors. So it's a very kind of limited thing.
Right. I guess, and the things what when you were describing it, it's like, oh yeah, and then there's sort of like the ultimate best hoodie ever made, or the
Yeah.
best belt you'll ever find because it's and they're like these very specialized, over the top, very high end products. Not so much just sort of a nice pattern and look and feel. Um, how did you decide like what type of skirt to make or what type like how did you decide it's going to be a button down short sleeve shirt, right? Versus something else. Like how did you go about thinking that through?
So initially, when I was first coming up with the concept, I was going to do just dresses. And the reason I changed to skirts instead of dresses is that dresses, if anyone's ever shopped for a dress online, it's quite difficult because you've got to fit the bust measurement, the waist measurement, and sometimes the hips as well. So it's very dependent on your body proportions and your body type, and it's really difficult to make that fit everyone. Whereas with a skirt, all you have to do is fit the waist measurement. So you just need the one measurement, and we can have that in a big range of sizes, and then pretty much anyone will be able to wear that. So, and the reason for the full circle kind of swooshy skirt is honestly, I just like those skirts.
Sure,
Um,
that's not a bad reason, right? You got to spend a lot of time doing this.
exactly.
And then how did you figure out the shirt?
So the shirt, we knew we wanted it to be, I guess, smart casual. We wanted it to, you could wear it to the office, you could wear it out, but it's not so formal that you wouldn't want to wear it on a day-to-day occasion. So we went for the button-up short sleeve just because it has that kind of vibe. I know not everyone is comfortable in short sleeves or can't, wear them to work. They'll need a long sleeve one. But hopefully, if this goes well, we'll be able to kind of expand our range as well and give those people some more options.
Sure. For sure. While you're talking, I'm looking at the site here. And so basically the way this works is you pick a shirt or skirt and then you're picking one of these 4 patterns. Is that about right?
Yeah, exactly. And so we'll do in the pledge manager, you can pick the sizes, the patterns you want. And we basically tried to design the pledges so it's as flexible as you want it to be. Like you can get as many shirts, as many skirts as you want in any combination. And the only variable kind of there is the shipping and how many things you're adding to your order.
Cool. Okay, one last question. Because it's fascinating to me. Okay, so you do this whole thing, and normally when you're running a board game Kickstarter, there's this distribution channel, right? There's like, hey, we're going to make these prints, or not prints, we're going to make these games, get it to backers, and then I'm going to print 500, 1,000 extra, and those are going to go into distribution, or I'm going to phone call up retailers, right? And it's going to go
Yep.
When you guys, when you're thinking about your approach here and printing and manufacturing or producing, is there a channel where you see selling these? Do you have a way into a channel? Is it clothing stores? Is it game stores? Like, is there an after Kickstarter plan? Or is it really like, Ed, I just wanted to make a skirt and a shirt. It's not that complicated. Like, where you are with it?
So we're definitely looking at post Kickstarter options. We'll definitely have them obviously on our own website and have them for sale there. And that's the easiest option, obviously. As we have it, we have the stock, we send them out on demand. In terms of like we've approached board game retailers and kind of geeky stores, it's a really odd product because we have so many SKUs. Like we have, I think, 6 or 7 sizes in the shirt, and then 9 sizes in the skirt. Each of those has 4 pattern variations. I think we're at 78 SKUs or something. So as a retailer trying to stock these variable sizes and patterns, you just don't want to do it because dedicated clothing stores get so much profit loss from sizes not selling or particular variations not selling.
Well, and presumably, I mean, the board game industry is sort of, a typical game store is buying stock and you're getting the money from it. But if you were to work with Target or a more traditional retailer, they're like, yeah, we'll carry your stock, but we always have the right to send it back to you and get our money back, right? And that's a very different model. And so, and game stores don't have clothing rooms, right? So, so it'll be interesting to see how you take that on. Certainly, your website is an easy way to do distribution. Are you considering Amazon as a channel or really just your website?
We haven't looked into Amazon yet. That's the whole rabbit hole that we're kind of reserving for after the Kickstarter, looking into that. What we are doing we know that it's difficult for retailers to stock us, but what we are offering is if retailers want to get clothes for their staff to wear to work or want to get clothes for themselves, we're basically offering them retailer pricing for that as well. So if they get in touch with us, if they want to wear us to work or kind of get product for themselves, they'll be able to kind of represent us and get some cool clothes.
Cool. And have you been able to build up an awareness in Australia, or is it predominantly internet and social media? Seeing
We
it as
have
that's your expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a fair audience in Australia. We've been to a few conventions. Obviously, we have a lot of friends and family here as well who are helping us spread the word. But I think 80% of our mailing list is US based, and a lot of that has just been, Facebook ads, social media, and just the reach of 80% of the market is in the US, so it's natural that our reach kind of skews that way as well.
Sure, for sure. And I suspect there'll be an audience in Europe as well. But cool. Well, I think you've answered all of my questions. It's certainly exciting and neat that you're doing something that is for the hobby, but also sort of askew. Yeah. Anything else you want to share? Though I'll link the site, but
Yeah, just that if you think this sounds cool, then please check out our Kickstarter, and we need your help to make it happen. So yeah, check it out.
awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on, and thanks everybody for watching.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Bye. So here's the fun part. Hey everybody, Edo here, and thanks for watching Gaming with Edo. Reviews over here on this playlist, League and Insider videos over here on this one. Subscribe, share, all that good stuff. But most importantly, play some great games. Thanks.